Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Classical Civilization section of our sixth form information week. So if you tuned into the introductory session with our principal and the heads of sixth form, you'll have already heard our head girl speak very eloquently about classics and the love for the subject that she's discovered. And it's a great pleasure to hear that. So I'll just kind of expand on that and elaborate on that a little bit over the next 15 minutes or so by giving you a little bit of information about how the course is structured and what we study in the Classical Civilizations A level here at college. So first of all, what is classical civilization? And of course, we need to ask this question now because it's a new subject. It's not one our students have been able to study previously in the lower school or the upper school. It's a new option in the sixth form. And classical civilization essentially is a study of the culture of ancient Greece and ancient Rome. And I think one of the things that makes it quite distinctive and differentiates it from the majority of A-levels is that it takes a very sort of cross-disciplinary or multidisciplinary approach. So it looks at those cultures through the lens of literature, art, archaeology, architecture, philosophy, and so on. So there's nothing is excluded. Anything we can use, any kind of evidence we can use to make sense of these cultures, we will explore. What we don't do is learn a language. So there isn't a study of Greek or ancient Greek or of Latin. All of the texts are in translation. But as I say, it is an attempt to get a view in the round of these cultures. And I think what students often find so kind of striking and engaging is that the cultures of ancient Greece and Rome are on the one hand kind of weird, alien, remote from us, full of these sort of strange and fascinating quirks, and at the same time so kind of resonant of issues that we still face today, so kind of immediately contemporary in their preoccupations and their concerns, not least of course because we've inherited so many of our ways of thinking and being from the classical world. Okay, so what does the course involve then? So the course is made up of 3 units, and you can see here the weighting of those, and all of these are assessed by examination. So there's no coursework or non-exam assessment in this subject. And actually, I think that's something students quite appreciate. Very often they're studying classics in conjunction with something like English or history or drama, perhaps, which does have a strong sort of non-exam assessment coursework element. So actually not having that extra one to balance in classics is something that students quite welcome, I think. Okay, so the first unit that we study, and I'm going to talk you through these in the order in which students experience them, because that's a true reflection of what it's like to do the course, is called Beliefs and Ideas. And the option that we do for this unit is love and relationships. So we try to make sense of what love, sex, marriage, those sorts of things meant to people in the ancient world. And we do that by looking at some literary evidence, and also it's the work of some philosophers from both ancient Greece and Rome. So from the Greek side, we look at Sappho, great lyric poet. Wonderful way to start the course. One of the few surviving voices from a woman that we have from the ancient world, female perspective. So important for our students to have that exposure to that side of the classical world. Alongside Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher, and then on the Roman side we've got Ovid, so another poet who is in many ways influenced by Sappho, but also has a strikingly different perspective, and one the students often kind of love to hate. Ovid is quite sort of controversial figure, and alongside the philosopher Seneca. So as I say, we attempt to bring together different kinds of evidence, poetry alongside philosophy, to get a sense of what it was like to be in this kind of thought world, this lived experience of the classical period. Okay, so we then move on to study a paper called Culture and the Arts, and our chosen option here is Greek theatre. So this gives us the opportunity to study some fantastic works of literature, some very enduringly famous pieces like Sophocles' tragedy Oedipus Tyrannus, Oedipus the King, as well as another tragedy by Euripides called Bacchae, which explores the kind of terrifying and often very violent consequences of the god Bacchus coming home to Thebes. On a much lighter note, we also study a kind of zany, quirky, slightly surreal old comedy called Frogs. By the playwright Aristophanes, but as the visual image on this slide hints, we're not just looking at the literary evidence. So again, we're looking at the culture in the round. So we can also learn about the experience of Greek theatre by looking at the physical remains, the archaeological remains of theatres themselves, and also at visual artistic representations, very often on pots, like the one you can see here. So again, bringing together a whole range of ways of making sense of the experience. And having taught English for many years at college, I think very often what students are most excited about when engaging with a literary text is actually how that text opens a window into other worlds and other minds. And again, this classics course is built around that. How can we use all sorts of different evidence to do exactly that, to open these windows? So the final unit we study is called The World of the Hero, and this is the most sort of literary in its focus. So we don't have we don't have philosophers or sort of visual evidence in terms of our primary sources. They are literary texts, and they are those great texts of the ancient world, the epics, epic poems. So from Homer, we look at the Iliad alongside the Latin epic Virgil's Aeneid. But again, the world of the hero is the title, and it's about trying to make sense of this world, this ethos, this way of experiencing life in the ancient world. And it's a fantastic culmination to the course, because students have read and studied and enjoyed by this point the poetry of Sappho, which is very often a direct response to Homer. It's kind of in dialogue with Homer. They've looked at Ovid, who's very much in dialogue with Virgil and butting up against the Aeneid. And they've looked at the Greek tragedies which come out of Homer. So there's a sense of kind of coming home to the origins of it all in Homer, and everything sort of clicking together, and students really arriving at quite a profound understanding of the ancient world. As you'll have heard from Mrs. Pateri and Mrs. Hopkins in the introduction, A-levels, of course, are not just about what we do in the classroom. They are also absolutely crucially about wider learning beyond. So one way that our students love to engage with the classics beyond the classroom is through contemporary fiction, so historical fiction or fictionalized accounts of sort of Greek and Roman mythology. So great kind of contemporary writers like Margaret Atwood, the young adult writer Madeline Miller. So novels are a really accessible way in to the subject. We have a textbook, a great set of textbooks, which as an English teacher who's never had a textbook before, I'm still really excited about having one for classics. And it's such a useful tool for being able to facilitate learning outside the classroom. It's really tailored to the syllabus. You can see there's a sort of wishful thinking photograph of Athens. Mrs. Hopkins and I introduced this syllabus just 2 years ago, so you can kind of imagine that we've not had many opportunities for trips, but I'm hoping that's changing, and we very much hope the next year we will be able to go and take students away. Even if you can't get as far as Athens at the moment, some people have been able to get away to London, and since we've been, in the short time we've been teaching this course, even there have been 2 major exhibitions at the British Museum, Troy and Nero, really closely related to the subject matter we're covering. And of the coin hoard there, just a reminder that even here on Jersey we've got ancient history all around us. So that the broader point here is that one of the reasons our students enjoy classics so much, one of the reasons that we have actually the majority of our year 13 class, more than half of them, wanted to go and study classics or ancient history at university, is partly because there's just so much opportunity to learn about this all around us. There are so many ways in which you can kind of nurture your passion, as Athena spoke about in the introduction, for classics. Okay, so in the live version of this talk that I'm now recording, a couple of our year 12 students spoke with such eloquence that I won't now be able to match. But I'm just going to kind of remind you, if you did see that or state for you otherwise, some of the things they said. And really, I think the main takeaway message was that they really enjoyed classics, both in and of itself, but also really importantly for the links it made with their other subjects. So they spoke about, learning about democracy and politics and linking that to Athenian democracy and classics, to being able to make really powerful connections between Caroline Duffy's poetry, say in English, right back to the Sappho, the ancient poets that had influenced her. Again, talking about links between drama and the study of Greek theatre, of religious studies and the study of philosophy and classics. They felt that more than any of their other subjects, classics linked everything together and provided them opportunities to make those really interesting connections in their learning. They also spoke about how the essay writing skills in classics helped them in a range of other subjects, English, media studies, and so on and so on. And spoke also as well about the elements of discussion in class and the really exciting ways in which we're constantly, as all classicists are, bouncing off the kind of modern world with the ancient world, how issues of urgent importance in our society today can be made better sense of by looking at it back through that ancient lens. Where have our ideas come from, our ideas about gender roles, our idea about politics, our ideas about what is heroic, and all of these sorts of things, and that legacy is still with us. Okay, so I'm going to leave you with this and just some comments from current year 13 students who have written these little sort of testimonials. And again, just thinking here about the range of the course: poetry, art, theatre, philosophy. And this idea of, well, I can't say it any better. I love it because it's like discovering a whole new world. That's what further studies is all about. That's what A-level is all about. And that's what classics is certainly all about. On a personal note, Mrs. Hopkins and I have absolutely loved this opportunity to share our passion for a new subject. I've spent a lot of time teaching English in the college, Mrs. Hopkins teaching philosophy and religious studies. We both also have this great enthusiasm for the classical world that we're now able to bring to the classroom every day, and that's just a joy. And to be able to do it with such wonderful students, of course, as well. So if you do have any questions, please do email me. My email is there. If you're a student, if I'm talking to a current student, obviously you can just pop in and see me. If I'm talking to a potential new student from another school, special welcome to you. Please do drop us an email and we can give you any more information you may need. Thanks so much for your time whenever you're watching this, and I do hope that we see many of you in the classics classroom next year. Thank you very much.